And we start right away with exclusive material. Kremlin terrorists shelled their own Sudzha gas measuring station. And of course blamed Ukraine for it. Well, that's the signature, Kremlin style. And also this week, drones now from the armed forces of Ukraine struck hard at the oil depot. Caucasian. The Russians were extinguishing the fire there all week. Why is this particular strike so, I would even say, especially painful for the Russian Federation? This is exactly what our next report is about.
A new provocation from the Russians. Putin's occupation forces shelled the Sudzha gas metering station in the Kursk region and blamed it on Ukraine. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, this station has been repeatedly shelled by the Russians themselves. In particular, last summer it was bombed with guided aerial bombs, and 3 days ago the Russians hit it again with cabbies.
In fact, the Russian Federation is undermining these agreements, and by striking the Sudzha gas distribution station, it is trying to discredit Ukraine's defense forces to supposedly show the Ukrainian side's inability to negotiate, moreover, the violation of previously reached agreements. In other words, the possibility of the very fact of concluding a 30-day ceasefire and accordingly further moving towards the so-called peace agreements to end the war in Ukraine. And all this shows that it is a planned nature of the Russian provocation.
Meanwhile, in Kuban, the oil depot continues to blaze. Caucasian. The Kavkazskaya oil depot was attacked by drones on the night of March 19th. The enterprise halted its operations because the drones disabled the pipeline between the tanks. But yeah, the refinery has been burning for the second day now.
The entire plant is completely on fire. Uncontrolled burning has already started. There isn't a single fire truck on the premises. Everyone has evacuated from there. All the hoses have burned everything that was there.
According to Russian media, during the firefighting process, an explosion of petroleum products occurred due to the depressurization of a burning tank and the release of burning oil.
What is happening today is the explosion of one of the tanks and the increase of the fire area to 10,000 square meters. That is, the Russian Federation is forced to acknowledge the most serious problems at the moment. The consequences of Ukrainian strikes using UAVs, B, the possibility of pumping oil products. And this oil depot was used as a transit point, and accordingly, the inability of the local central authority, to counter all external threats in the form of drone strikes and to promptly eliminate the consequences of Ukrainian attacks.
And while Russia is ablaze, Putin's chief security aide, Sergei Shoigu, has arrived in North Korea. The main Russian security veteran, Comrade Sergei Shoigu. Shoigu is supposed to meet with Kim Jong-un and other DPRK officials. The North Korean dictator has become a key ally of Putin in the war in Ukraine.
Apparently, Shoigu's visit is related to the future nature of supplies. Weapons produced by the directly for the needs of the occupying country's army. Primarily, it concerns Saukaksan, drones produced by North Korea. And most importantly, the personnel of the DPRK military, plus artillery shells for the needs of the occupying army.
And in the skies over Ukraine, British Typhoon or F-35 fighters may appear. The United Kingdom may take a leading role in providing air cover for the troops. In the coming weeks, planes will be sent to Poland, but they may later be transferred to Ukraine, reports The Telegraph.
In principle, indeed, the British Typhoon, it meets in its class either the Russian Su-35 or the American F-16E. If there is a positive decision regarding the transfer or the coverage of airspace, thanks to the British Typhoons, this will significantly enhance the capabilities of the Ukrainian side, both in terms of air defense. And the Typhoons will be used to destroy drones, missiles, and aerodynamic targets. But most importantly, it is accordingly striking command posts, temporary deployment points, and heavy armored vehicle accumulation points.
Dozens of countries have offered to provide troops, planes, ships, and other resources for a peacekeeping mission in Ukraine. All in order to end the bloody war initiated by Putin.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Well, now it's time to analyze the operational situation on the Kramatorsk and Toretsk fronts. The enemy continues its military terror. On the Kramatorsk front, the aggressors attacked the defense forces' positions 3 times in the area of Chasiv Yar and towards Delyevka. On the Toretsk front, the enemy attacked a total of 10 times. In the area of Toretsk and near Delyevka, Dakhne and Krymske. Another battle is currently ongoing there. Another act of genocide against the Ukrainian people. Recently, Kyiv experienced one of the most terrifying nights since the full-scale war began. A massive Russian drone attack not only struck the city, but also claimed the lives of civilians. Enemy fire killed 3 people. Among the dead were a father and his 5-year-old daughter. 10 people were injured. The youngest victim was only 11 months old. But unfortunately, the Russian terror against civilians did not end there. On March 24th, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Russian forces launched missile strikes on a densely populated residential area in the city of Sumy. Residential buildings were destroyed and schools, a kindergarten, a hospital, and other infrastructure were damaged. Furthermore, it is currently known that there are over 100 injured, among whom there are children once again. Now let's analyze the situation on the Kupiansk and Kharkiv fronts. The enemy is becoming more daring here as well. On the Kharkiv front, the aggressors attacked the defense forces' positions twice in the area of the settlement of Vovchansk. The settlements of Svetlikne and Slatino were hit by airstrikes. On the Kupiansk front, the enemy attacked our troops' positions 4 times in the areas of Petropavlivka, Stepne, Novoselki, and also Zarisove. 3 clashes are still ongoing. It has been more than 3 years since the enemy army's brutal strike on the Mariupol drama theater. This week, residents of several Ukrainian cities took to the streets with flowers, candles, and children's toys to honor the memory of more than 1,000 Ukrainians who perished. March 16th, 2022. At that time, in the very center of Mariupol, already engulfed in flames, people were taking shelter in the theater building, hoping to escape the relentless bombings. Correspondent Mariana Bukan from KTSN will now tell us about the fate of those who survived this horror. Her chilling report follows.
I want to enter this story.
Sergei Ovcharenko with the pseudonym Dobryak went to serve in Azovstal back in 2014. He resigned 5 years later. His fiancée Victoria insisted on a civilian life. At the moment of the full-scale invasion, Sergei was working abroad. He quickly packed his things, came to Ukraine, and immediately, as part of the reconnaissance team, flew on one of the helicopters to the already surrounded city.
There were only 4 helicopters. 2 with ammunition and 2 with troops.
Well, with troops.
The very next day, Dobryak realized the full bravery and courage of his action.
And Saronia, like Sergei, where are you going?
Sergei, where did you arrive? I didn't understand anything because back then it was somehow an enthusiasm, on some kind of adrenaline. You arrive, everything is being bombed, aviation. You don't understand where you are. The next day when I woke up, I thought, aha, cool.
Cool! In the end? But seriously?
Am I seriously here? Did I make some kind of mistake? But then I realized no.
For all 86 days until entering the so-called calculated captivity, Sergei did not receive a single injury. He says, despite all the horror that was happening in Mariupol in general and at Azovstal in particular, fear. There he didn't even feel it.
Probably it was scarier for those people who just, let's say, entered the bunker on February 24th, or I don't know, and only came out during the release from captivity. It was much scarier for those people.
Well, the shelling was really quite intense.
It was so intense that the walls in the bunker were shaking, even.
That is, even in the bunker.
Anatoly Voloshin is one of those whom Dobryak is talking about. He lived in Mariupol, worked as a bulldozer operator, and was a pastor of one of the Protestant churches. At the start of the full-scale invasion, he volunteered to dig trenches on the front line. In early March, he was wounded.
When we were passing through the Azovstal territory at the exit gates, a shell exploded above our vehicle on March 14th. I was wounded and ended up in the hospital.
And the very next day, enemy shells targeted the hospital as well. Anatoly received a second wound. I stood up. My abdomen was cut open because they were checking what injuries I had. A fragment flew in and stopped near the heart. Anatoly was brought to Azovstal.
The atmosphere of practicality.
There was practically no atmosphere because of the dust. Constant explosions near that bunker. We were given 2 cans of canned sorry for 5 people. For 1 meal it was 2 cans of sorry. There was practically no bread, not practically, but none at all. A small cup of porridge.
In mid-April, all the defenders of Mariupol relocated there as well.
Azovstal was being shelled from all sides. At Azovstal, what was more frightening was that you had no idea what would happen to you.
Dobryak recalls that before going into what was called honorable captivity for 3-4 months, the guys in the Azovstal bunkers destroyed everything they could.
Everything.
That was there. We dismantled and just scattered everywhere. In the end, we just doused everything with gasoline, diesel, doused everything and shot the radios. And in the end, when we were leaving, we set it on fire and left.
We kind of exited, it floated up, and then we left.
And then there was Olenivka and a terrorist attack in one of the barracks.
They take the guys and then the terrorist attack happens. You understand that no, this is not an honorable captivity.
Anatoly was held by the Russians in prison for 295 days. Sergei spent 3 times as long in captivity.
848 days.
This is Sergei right after the exchange in September of last year. All the time of his captivity. In Ukraine, his mother and fiancé fought for his release. In particular, they went out weekly to support actions for the prisoners of war and waited.
Wait, we'll see each other soon. I love and hug everyone.
Just 3 months after being released from captivity, Sergei and Victoria got married. I like it. I like family life. In general, I like spending time with Sergei, living together, communicating, relaxing. Chatting. Resting. Sergei has already regained his vision, had knee surgery, he is rehabilitating, and together with Vaika, they have big plans.
Children like stars in the sky.
Children like stars in the sky. Business, money, finances.
Cash.
The first thing is a child. We really want a child.